Hi, so in this video, we're going to go over a quick AP CSA Unit 1 quiz. This is a quiz that's mainly around vocab, so it's not exactly AP questions, but this might be similar to what you might get in class. So let's go ahead and get started on the quiz. So if a variable is declared as final, that means that blank. So this is really just a vocab question. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to explain a little bit more than I would, you need to go a little bit faster when you're taking this quiz in class, but or on the exam. But here we go. So the code will only compile if the variable is declared on a separate line from its initialization. That doesn't make any sense. So you need to be careful, you need to be thinking about the fact that a lot of times answer options on the AP test make no sense. So what we're really trying to do is we do want to read every answer option. So the variable cannot be modified later in the code. That is really the correct answer. But I'm still going to put a question mark next to this. You really do want to read every single option and make sure that you're not missing anything. Don't just fly through and say, hey, B looks correct, and go there. But modifications to the variable require a cast. That doesn't make any sense because casting a variable doesn't actually change its value. Its value can only be positive, not negative. There's nothing in Java that's like that. And then expressions using that variable cannot change. So this is where you might get confused, or I wouldn't blame you if you answered E here because you see that word cannot change. So that's where they really get you. But let's just use our red here. And these are definitely not true. This is definitely not true. And if you get your test on a piece of paper, do write things down like this. And you can cross stuff out. So we're between B and E. Now, what I will say is that expressions are things that are just in the code, like x plus 5. That's an expression. And so expressions would never change anyways. So this option here doesn't really make sense either. So we can, I'll use green for the correct answer, and green is here, okay? And we can just erase all the rest of this stuff here. Okay. And green is the correct answer there. So that's B. It cannot be modified later in the code. So that's easy peasy there. The statement score plus equals 6. When they give you an answer like this is equivalent to which of the following statements, it's probably good to just write down what you think the answer is. So I know from compound assignments that it's score equals score plus 6. I know that's the right answer. So A is not even syntactically correct Java. This doesn't make any sense because we're not including the original value of the variable, which we know that we need to in a compound assignment statement. This is definitely the correct answer, but let's just read the rest of them. Score plus 6 equals score. That is not correct, syntactically correct Java. You might get confused here just because it almost looks right if you're rushing, but don't get confused there. And then score minus equals 6 is hilarious because why would plus equals 6 be the same as minus equals 6? So we're going to go ahead and highlight C in green. C is the correct answer. Okay, so this is a bit of a situation question here. I have an app and I want to declare a variable to store whether a button is visible or invisible. What is the most appropriate declaration? So a key thing that they're asking about here, and they is me because I wrote this quiz when I was a teacher. But what is the most appropriate declaration? So one thing we can note here is we can just X out in red things that don't have a Boolean in their declaration. So if it's an int or a double, that's not a declaration of a Boolean variable. Although, wait a second, let's see. Did this say Boolean in here? No. But this is kind of like a word problem. And you have to identify that whether a button is visible or not is a true false situation. So that means Boolean. So I kind of skipped ahead there, but when I read this, I immediately think Boolean because we're choosing between one option and another. It's not a number, it's not a string. The value of this variable would definitely need to be a Boolean, or it would make the most sense, most appropriate, right? So most appropriate is kind of like almost like a judgment statement here, but definitely Boolean seems like the most normal. And then all we have to do is think about which one of these will compile. So is 0 or 1.0, are those Booleans? They are not, right? Those are numbers. So those won't even compile. So this actually becomes an easy question. Even if you can't remember the difference between declaration and initialization, This one is, by the way, is visible. This is a declaration. When you have the equal sign in the same line, that actually is a declaration and initialization. But Boolean is visible here. That is the correct answer because it's a declaration of a Boolean variable, and we identified kind of from the word problem that this is visible or whatever would be true, false. Oh, goodness gracious. What is the value of evaluating this expression? 2 mod 2 plus 2 times 2. Okay, so we can do some PEMDAS here. Zoomed in a little bit here. So let's write this out. Plus 2 times 2. Okay. So, and the way that I would do this with my AP students is I would say PEMDAS. So mod is the same as multiplication. So that means it's really like this and this. So 2 times 2 is easy. That's 4. And then what's 2 mod 2? 2 mod 2 is the result of dividing 2 and 2. And then what's the remainder? So 2 divided by 2 is 1, remainder 0. Sorry, my thing scrolled here. So 2 mod 2 is 0, so 0 plus 4 is 4, and so we can just circle that. I guess we're supposed to circle in green, so circle in green. Okay, so 4 is the correct answer. This is another, evaluating this expression, so we can do this here. So 1 plus, and we'll just write down our PEMDAS here. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 mod 2 plus 3 divide 4, and this is all in parentheses. So let's just do this one step at a time. We'll do the inner parentheses first. 2 mod 2 plus 3. All of that's in parens, divide 4. So we're going to do this one next. So 2 mod 2 we already identified is 0. So we've got this divided by 4. And so then 1 plus 0 plus 3, we can do that all in one step. 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. If I did that fast, this is a good one to kind of know how it works, because it's about the PEMDAS, where mod is in there with multiplication and divide. And the exact specifics of it, you're not going to get anything like too nasty where you're deciding between multiplication and division. But I really like to drill my students on that because I think it's a really valuable skill. Okay, so now we're back to vocab. Clearing my throat here a little bit. Let's see, dog, my dog equals new dog, Docker. Docker's the name of my dog. You'll see that in all my videos. And then my dog.bark. The second line is an example of, okay, so returning a value, let's see, returning a value wouldn't make sense because, are we doing any assignment here? Are we using the value? Okay, we didn't return, we didn't print out the value of my dog.bark, so we're not using the value. So we wouldn't be returning a value. Calling a void method seems like probably the right answer. I'm going to put a question mark by it right now. Passing a formal parameter. Do you see any parameters here? No, you do not. And then calling a non-void method. Again, a non-void method and returning a value. These two things are related. These are the same. So calling a non-void method is the same as having a method that returns a value. So I would say that the right answer is, in fact, B. So we're going to write down B here. Okay, and circle that. Sounds good. What is the purpose of calling a constructor? So we can look back at this example in a previous thing here. My dog is equal to a new dog of with the formal parameter or actual parameter of Docker. Calling this constructor here gives us a new instance of the dog class. So let's see which one of these says that. To initialize formal parameters for their values, that doesn't even make sense. And I'm going to change colors here. So that doesn't make sense. To initialize methods with their formal parameters, that's also a sentence that doesn't even make any sense. Define the class's name and type kind of sounds okay, but create a new instance of the class. This is a vocab question where we kind of just need to know the vocab. So to create a new instance of a class. All right. Let's see. Consider this declaration of a constructor for the dog class. Public my dog, so we've got a name and a double. In another file, the constructor is called as this, my dog equals 30.0 in Docker. Okay, how can we fix this code? This code doesn't work. Well, look at this. We've got the string. We've got a string here, and the formal parameter has it in the first position, but in the actual parameter, it's in the second position. And here we've got the double is in the declaration of the constructor up here. We have the double as second, and down here we have the double as being passed first. So let's see, how can we fix the code? Let's see. Change the first formal parameter to be of type double. Now, if they were both double, that wouldn't work because, we have this string in here in the actual parameters, so that wouldn't work. Change the name. Changing the name of a parameter is never going to do anything really, unless you use the parameter later in the code, which you would. But for here, we're not really looking at how the method is actually written. Reverse the order of the actual parameters, where that probably seems pretty good, right? Initialize an instance of a different class. That would solve the problem because this is bad code, but that's really doesn't make too much sense. So the right answer here is going to be reverse the order of the actual parameters. Okay, moving on down here. So we're doing a lot with the dog class here. On the AP exam, they're not going to all be the same. They're not all going to be the same example class, but for this quiz, it's kind of nice that we're going over the same example over and over again, so we're not thinking about too much stuff. So what is the value of the actual parameter? The actual parameter. So this is one where we can just start Xing things out. Dog is not a parameter. Cream cheese is here. It's definitely inside some parentheses, so this might be a parameter. String is the name of a type, and I didn't even uppercase it, so that doesn't make any sense. And then my dog is not a parameter. So even if we don't remember the difference between formal and actual, doesn't really matter here because we've crossed out all of the options. And so the right answer has got to be cream cheese. And my dog goes nuts for cream cheese, by the way. Okay. Consider this declaration of a constructor for the dog class. We've got a name and a weight. So we've got the name first and the weight second. So let's go through and we can do this one thing at a time here. So, well, this is a funny one. Sorry, I think scrolled. New my dog. It's not even valid Java. Okay, X that out. Okay, so we're looking for something where there's a string. Let's do this string first. Okay, so there's a string here. So we're going to keep this one in. There is not a string here. This isn't even valid Java code, so we can X this one out. Let's just scribble this fully out. Scribble this fully out. See what I'm saying when you're always scribbling stuff out? Now we're down to two options. Everything's a little bit easier. So what we got to look at here is the 30 in the quotes. That's a string. 30.0 is a double. So that means that, in fact, this is the correct answer. I can get rid of all this red. It's kind of bothering me. Okay, there we go. All right, consider this code. This is another real just vocab question. Okay, consider this code. Dog, my dog equals new dog, Docker. Okay, we've seen this example like 5 times. But this is filling in the blanks 2 times. So we blank the constructor on the right-hand side of the code. Okay, well, we don't initialize the constructor. So this, let me do red again. Initializing a constructor, you don't even ever really do that. You define a constructor somewhere. So that doesn't even make any sense. And then I'm looking at option D here. We don't create the constructor. So now we're down to 2 options. And then we can think about here what goes in the second spot. So we call the constructor of the blank. Okay, so does a my dog object itself have a constructor? No, you use So I'm thinking about this option here. I don't know why the color changed. We don't have a constructor on an actual object itself. A constructor is a part of a class. So for that reason, this doesn't make any sense, which means that this has got to be the right answer. Okay, let's see. Consider the following code. So we got the dog constructor, and then we have mydog.eat cream cheese. For this code to compile, the eat method must. So let's see. Be called outside of the main method. Can you call anything outside of the main method? Not in the version of Java that we think about on the exam. So that doesn't make any sense. Have more than one actual parameter when called. So this is a little bit trickier one, but if this eat method had more than one actual parameter, I don't even think this sentence makes any sense. Methods have more than one. Okay, have more than one actual parameter when called. This doesn't make sense because we only have one actual parameter here. So let's X that out. Okay, and then let's see. So be called without the mydog object. That is not something that makes sense in Java. We always have to call a method with an object, object.method. So then have a single string as its formal parameter, and that sounds just about right because this here, this cream cheese is a single actual parameter and it's a string. So if the eat method has a single string as its formal parameter, then we're feeling good, which means that this D is in fact the right answer. Alrighty. Alrighty, so consider this declaration of a constructor for the dog class. We have our formal parameters, the name and the double. Oh my gosh, well, there we go. I just read this out loud. And so what are the names of the formal parameters? Let's see, with our pen, we can start crossing stuff out. Are there no formal parameters? No, I see two formal parameters. Name and weight seems pretty good. I'm gonna put a question mark next to that for now. Dog and constructor that's BS, that doesn't make any sense. And the string and double, these are related to the formal parameters, but these are the types of the formal parameters. These are the names. So we were looking for the names, which means that this B is in fact the correct answer. Okay, so a constructor's name must, and then this is a fill in the blanks. A constructor's name must be different than the names of the constructors for that class. Appear before any names of other methods. I'm just reading these out loud. Be different than the names of other constructors for that class. There's only ever one constructor, so this doesn't make any sense. Okay. Appear before the names of any other methods. Honestly, that's a Java fact that I'm not positive about, but I don't think that's true. I don't think, this is another question mark one. I'm not sure. This is a really hard question actually, because these two things I'm actually not sure about in Java. So sometimes in the exam, you have to answer based on what you know is the most true. And so we know that the constructor has to have the same name as the class. The dog constructor has to be called dog. So that's definitely true. These other ones are maybe true. Okay. So this is just a test taking strategy. Something's maybe true and you're like, hey, I don't really know about that in Java. Look through all the answers and find the one that's the most true, based on your knowledge of Java and your knowledge of the problems. Okay. Consider this code, dog my dog equals new dog dogger. My dog is a blank of type blank. Okay, so let's see. My dog is of type blank of type blank. Let's see. So my dog is the first blank. So let's see. This is an interesting one. My dog is this is not a constructor. Okay. So my dog is not a constructor. Now my dog here is actually, in fact, it is an object and it is a variable. So we're between these two for sure. my dog here is not a parameter, so we can cross out this whole thing already. Okay, so then is my dog, sorry, got a little pop-up there, misclick. Is my dog of type my dog? That doesn't make any sense. My dog is of type dog. So the question kind of simplifies itself here because the second answer, there's no way that this second B here is correct. So that means that C has got to be our answer. So you notice that for a lot of these, we're doing process of elimination. Okay, so consider this code. This has got to be a repeat. Or maybe it's not, but we've had a lot of these, so I'm just going to fly through this one. My dog is an instance of the dog class. We get that. An instance of a class can also be referred to as an, and this is, we're just doing a lot of vocab here. An instance of a class can also be referred to as a, so let's just think, method makes no sense, constructor makes no sense, object, we've heard that word a lot, and we usually call things objects. Parameter makes no sense in this context. So the most correct answer is going to be object. Okay. And so I would note here that there are situations in Java where maybe you would pass an instance of a class as a parameter. So that could be correct, but this is maybe. It's kind of situational. This one is always. So if you have a maybe and an always, you gotta circle the always. The always is the one that matters. It's not the maybe. It's not always true. So we need the one that's always true. Okay. So let's look at this. We've got dog, my dog, same constructor as before. System.out.println my dog.getName is good. Now, what I'll note here, just what do we? It's so funny. My actual dog just barked. I think he's heard stuff about dogs too much. So this could be a string. This could be a number, because you can like print out strings, numbers. This could be a Boolean. This could be a double. It could be an int, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So we actually see here in the objects, it could be a string, could be an int, could be a Boolean. Now void, I think there's going to be a few questions here about void. Void means no value. Okay, that means there's no return value. So which can, we got some double negatives, but which can it not be? It cannot be void. Okay, so this is the correct answer. You can't add void to a string here. This won't compile. If my dog.getName is void, it wouldn't work. All right, more questions about void methods here. What is the purpose of a void method? What did I just say? Do void methods return anything? No, they do not. To perform an action like printing or to change the value of an instance variable, that sounds pretty correct to me. Creating a new instance of a class, that's what a constructor is for, not a void method. To change the formal parameters into actual parameters, that isn't a thing. This is just nonsense words. So through process of elimination alone, we have determined that the correct answer here is B. Okay. And this is a screenshot of a Google quiz where the things were randomized, but it does seem like we've been getting a lot of B's and C's, no? Okay. But this one looks like it's going to be maybe different. Okay, a void method returns. So you never return parameters. Well, you might, but this is actually a maybe. You might return a parameter in a method. You might return a parameter in a method, but that's not something that always happens. In Java, you can never return multiple values. So this is a cross out. A void method returns no formal parameters. You would never return a formal parameter. That doesn't make any sense. And then no value. And no value here is a check. So no value there is a check mark. Okay, so consider the following code. So now we're getting into some string methods, which is something we're finally switching it up. We're not talking about instances and methods and constructors and all that. Which of the following will print Mr. Meyer? Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, here is so this was some kind of trivia about me and this YouTube channel. My name is Charlie Meyer, and Mr. Barden was the name of the principal at the school that I taught at. So which of the following statements will print Mr. Meyer? So one thing that is good to know here is that the string Mr. only appears in name 1, right? The substring. So this is a big substring question. So the string Mr. only appears in name 1, which means that, luckily, this is going to be a process of elimination sort of thing. Name 2 can't go first because name 2 does not contain the substring Mr. So we can just cross this out right now. Okay. Now, let's see. So remember with your substrings, this is very important. So let's just look at this Mr. here. How are we going to get Mr.? So Mr. And then I'm going to draw a space here. Barden. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I did that right. So to get the string Mr., we need 0, 1, and then in Java, to get 0 and 1, it goes from 0 to 2. So you need substring. The second index that you pass to substring is not included. So we need at least 0 and 1, which means that we actually have to include the 2 here. Which means that in our process of elimination, name1.substring01 won't work because that doesn't include the full substring 0. So now we're down to 3 options. Okay. So now we're going to have to write out Charlie Meyer. This is actually a really tricky question. I'm going to have to write this actually bigger here so we can get all our indexes right. So I've never spelled my name so big on an iPad, I don't think. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so we have, let's look at option C here. Name2.substring07 would include the word Charlie. So that is not what we want. We want to print Mr. Meyer. So again, we're actually eliminating one more option. Okay, so let's see. Now it's going to come down to the spaces. Oh my gosh, this is actually such a hard question. Okay, so we need to know, what we need to know next is what is, so name1.substring03, this would be Mr. and then a space. And then name2.substring6 would include 6 to the end. So this would be Mr. and then E space Meyer, which would not be good. Okay, so we can actually cross that out. But then in a question like this, we actually do want to verify that the final answer that we're giving is what we want. So this, got a lot of stuff going on here. So this name1.substring02, this would give us Mr., as we saw it from above, and then name2.substring7 would give us, that was an 8 there, that would give us everything from 7 to the end. And that's an important thing to know about substring. If there's one parameter, then it's going to take everything to the end. So this would be Mr. plus space Meyer, and that is exactly what we want. That's got to be the record on this quiz for the longest question. All right, we're back. I just got a glass of water here. My voice is getting a little sore from talking for so long. And then we've got a new question, though. So this is a long one, So one of the things about an AP question where it's really long is you got to start kind of skimming and kind of seeing what the question is about. So we're going to see which of the following are actual question. There's so much information, but which of the following statements is invalid? Okay, so yeah, we got to figure that out here. So let's see, we've got just reading this real quick, we've got string attributes, we've got an int attribute, we've got a void method, we've got an int method, we've got a string method, string method. And this is a valid way to construct it. Okay, so which of the following statements is invalid? Okay, invalid. So we have to look at this. Can you take the square root of an integer? Yes, you can. So this so far seems valid. We're going to go quick because there's so many options, okay? Now, system.out println checkers get player new to name substring 0. You can take the substring of a string, so that looks pretty good. Let's see here. Num turns with parameter 5. Uh-oh. Num turns is not a method. Num turns is an attribute. So I am going to be very wary of this one. I think this is probably the one that's invalid. My checkers.startGame. StartGame is a void method with no parameters. So this looks pretty good. And then checkers.numTurns is a getNumTurns is an int method. So we can call that method and print out the result. So that means that this looks pretty good. Okay, so then everything looked good except for this one, which means that this is the invalid one. And so a lot of practicing AP questions is kind of just getting used to like the double negatives of like, is this, is this the cannots versus invalids versus valids versus, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So we've got a class here, the person class, and then we've got a constructor with a lot of these questions is going to come down to parameters here. So this constructor has a parameter A that's a string and a parameter B that is an int. So which of the following code segments will correctly create an instance of the person object? We're looking for string then int. So let's see. This does look like string then int, so we're pretty sure this is int then string, so that's an X. Then this is string then int, so this looks right, so something's going wrong here. This is string then string, so that doesn't make any sense. This is not even syntactically correct. This my person variable isn't declared, so that doesn't make any sense. So let's fully cross out stuff so we can get our situation here in check. Okay, so what's going on? Bob25, that's what we focused in on was the parameters, but then it's got to be which piece of Java syntax, I keep clicking this microphone thing, which piece of Java syntax is actually correct? It's person, my person equals new person. So that's the one that will correctly create an instance. We're not looking for incorrect, we're looking for correct today. So this one is correct. This one is not valid Java code. Okay. Considering the following code, we're back to the dogs and the cream cheese. This might be a repeat. This is a repeat, so we're going to skip that one. All right. Consider, oh my gosh, this is a string length question, so we're going to have to write this out real quick. So int len equals s1.length. What is the value of len after the code executes? So we're going to have to write this in big letters. So hi, comma, space, B-U-D-D-Y, exclamation point. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are the indexes. Great, those are the indexes. But that is a trick. That's not what you want to do. I don't know what that means. So hi, buddy. We actually want to use our regular just count on your fingers. That's what I told my students when we were doing these string len questions. Count on your fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 characters in that string. So that means that 10 is the right answer. And oh my gosh, this was so annoying because we just did 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So any version of you screwing this up would have been at least on the answer sheet. So would have been pretty tough. But yeah, 10 is the answer there. Okay. Whoa, this is a long class. So I don't know. We don't need to read the whole class. We want to get to what the question is. But like kind of just skimming here. We've got a bank account. It's got some attributes. It's got a constructor. It's got some methods. Let's see what the question is. And this is our last question. Given the bank account class definition below, what is the output of the code in the main method? Wow. Okay, so we actually have to run some code here. So let's see. We create a new bank account, and the bank account constructor is up here. So what we care about is the initial deposit. Well, we care about the total. So at the end, we print current total, which is printing out this total instance variable. So what we care about is tracking the total. Okay, so we're going to make a box for this instance variable. That's how I like to think about instance variables. So when this line of code executes, we have 100.00. That's what is going into the initial deposit. So that means that the total is equal to 100.00. Okay, now let's move on to this line here. We withdraw 40. Withdrawing 40 means that we subtract $40 from the total, which means that the total is now going to be equal to $60. Okay. Now we move on to this next line. We deposit $50. So $50 is the parameter here. We pass that to the deposit method, and that means we add the $50 here. So let's see, we are going to erase this 60 and change that to 110. And then we're on the final line, which is print current total. And all we're doing is printing out this total value here, and the total is equal to 110. And 110 is in fact one of our options. Okay, so that last one was pretty convoluted, or kind of a long question. So that was a quiz here. We went through a lot of vocab, and we went through a bunch of stuff about variables and printing and objects and parameters and methods and return types and all that kind of stuff. So I hope this was a helpful video, and going through it was useful. I'll link the quiz PDF in the description of this video, and thanks for watching.